There is a spacer that goes between the tensioner and the crank pulley. This spacer is part of the engine carrier mounts, red arrow. If you are not going to be removing the rear bumper guard, use a 16mm socket on an extension and remove the bolt from the engine carrier to engine through the opening behind the license plate and indicated by the red arrow. You will need a long magnet to retrieve the bolt. The spacer is now free to be removed from the rear of the engine. While it is possible to remove the following components without removing the rear bumper, if this is the first time doing this, I highly recommend you take the time, as it will end up being quicker and safer. We have removed everything for photographic purposes, and it's just the right way to do it. Spray the upper collar and 2 clamps with penetrating oil, and then remove the clamps using a 13mm socket, red arrow. Do this for both sides and slip the collar aside. Spray the 3 nuts that hold the center muffler to the cats with penetrating oil, and then remove the nuts using a 13mm socket, red arrow. Do this for both sides. These nuts and bolts can get very corroded and will often break. This is a good place for an impact driver if you have one. Use a 6mm Allen and remove the 2 bolts from the center hanging straps. Do not lose the spacers, red arrow. Slide the muffler hanger straps off the muffler, red arrows. The muffler is now just supported by the bolts on the cats. If these bolts have broken off during removal, the muffler will fall, so make sure you are supporting it while removing the straps. Then remove the muffler. Before you begin supporting the engine, have a look at the cross member, red arrow. You do not want to lower the engine to the point that it is resting on the cross member. Support the engine with a floor or screw jack. If you are using a floor jack, make sure to support the engine for any length of time with jack stands as well. You do not want the engine resting its weight on the cross member. With the engine supported, remove the 2 T55 Torx nuts holding the engine mounts to the carrier. Slowly lower the engine, red arrow, until you can see and remove the 3 remaining 16mm carrier hardware, blue arrows. Next, remove the muffler carrier. You can now remove the engine carrier from the vehicle. Inspect it for any damage. If you find any cracks, the carrier must be replaced. There is a spacer between the carrier and the engine indicated by the red arrow. The lower left side carrier hardware on our vehicle was a nut. When we removed it, there is not enough space to remove the spacer, so we double nutted the bolt and removed the stud, red arrow. This will give you enough room to remove the spacer. On some vehicles, the stud will come out with the nut, as the end of the nut is deformed to assist in this. You now have clear access to many of the components on the rear of the engine, including the coolant pump, green arrow, thermostat, red arrow, and the tensioner, blue arrow. Installation is the reverse of removal. Torque the engine carrier mounting hardware to 65 Newton meters or 48 foot-pounds, and the engine carrier to engine mounts, T55 Torx screws, to 85 Newton meters or 63 foot-pounds. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and check out another video in this series.